What is going on, Stallions? Welcome to the Gamer Heaven, where we focus on the past, present, and future of gaming. Today we're going to cover all the best ways to get into retro gaming in 2021, whether that's owning the native hardware, i.e. consoles, games, controllers, and a CRT TV, or it's through emulation on something like a old used PC, or even one of these little bad boys. Let's get it. Alrighty guys, so jumping right in, the first method to getting into retro gaming would be to own the actual native consoles, so the actual original consoles. Now this is the most expensive, as these consoles are now retro. They're very hard to find, one in good working condition, and not only do you need to get the console, but then you need to get retro games for it, which you need to buy each one individually, plus you'll need accessories, you'll need to find working order controllers, and there's virtually zero customization there. You're getting the most accurate native representation of those games, but you're also going to need an old school CRT TV, one of the big old, in case you're a younger crowd, the TVs that weren't flat screens, they had like a big bubble in the background, they actually had like light tubes. Because if you try and run it on a modern LCD or OLED panel, 1080p ones handle it okay, but most monitors nowadays, 4K's kind of gone down in price and become the standard now. So they look worse than they did natively on a CRT TV, so you're going to have to throw in the cost and the journey of finding a CRT TV as well. Not to mention, you're going to have to buy multiple consoles to get the same experience as if you just get an emulation station built into your PC. So in my opinion, the only perk to that would be is if you are a collector. You have a game room in your house, and maybe you're a little bit older, you grew up with these consoles like I did. I'm not necessarily as old as some of you might be that grew up with these consoles, but to me it's the most expensive. There's the least customization. Your games will never look or run any smoother or prettier than they did on those original consoles, but if you're a purist, then you want to see what they look like back in the mid-90s or even earlier, depending on what you're playing. Then that's the way to go. The next one is going to be buying one of those mini consoles. For example, I have reviewed on this channel the PS1 Classic, which is a little mini emulator console. Nintendo kind of started it with the SNES Classic, which are still fetching a premium. They're well over their recommended MSRP because they're getting bought up like hotcakes. And that is a relatively good option. It's a small box that has the same look or design of the original console, but shrunken down, and they generally are loaded with between 20 and 60 of the original titles and come with 2 controllers, so that's cool. You can play 2-player games with your buddies on the couch. A lot of these actually come with really short cables, though, which is kind of weird. You're going to need to buy like a USB extension to actually be able to sit back in your couch and play. But that's a pretty good option because they generally come with multiple games, 2 controllers, and if you can get them for recommended MSRP and not pay a markup, that's a pretty good option for you. Now the next option, we're going to kind of break this into 2 different categories, and that is going to be emulation. So you can get an older PC, like I recommend going onto eBay, or I have covered in the past places to get a used second or third hand Dell Optiplex computer. So what happens is universities, colleges, they basically get new stock of computers every 3 to 5 years, so to keep them all modern and fresh. Same thing with enterprises, so offices. They basically try and trade in all their old models, and to kind of soften the blow, the cost of buying those new PCs, they will sell their inventory in wholesale or bulk, all their old PCs, so you can pick up a used Dell Optiplex on eBay for anywhere between $80 and $200. So the one I have sitting right here on the floor, let me tilt the camera. So that one I have right there on the floor, that is a Dell Optiplex 390 I bought for $130 on eBay, threw in a used $45 graphics card, and a couple other little cheap upgrades, and basically that thing will run most modern titles at low settings 1080p at about 80 to 90 frames per second, which means it'll have no problem emulating older games, N64, NES, Super NES, Sega Genesis, some of the controllers that are on the wall behind me. And that's another thing. All these are USB controllers. They're not the actual native plugs of those controllers, so I can use these on any PC. And also with that, with emulation, you can do a lot of customization. In the user interface, you can basically add frame rate buffs where the games run more fluid and smooth than their original product. You can buff resolution up to 16 times, so you can be playing 007 GoldenEye from the N64 at like 4K. Now, granted, it's not going to be like a native 4K AAA title you guys are thinking of, but it is going to be much crisper. All the entire environment, the resolution is a lot crisper and it looks a lot better. You can also do things like instantly save and load your games just by pressing a combination of keys on your controller. You can screen record from a lot of these interfaces if you want to share your gameplay onto YouTube or something. And there's just a whole lot more that you can do there. But you don't even need to spend $130 and get yourself a full-size, or that's a small form factor, but a actual PC to do this. In my opinion, and this has been my opinion for probably about 6 or 7 years now, since the original Raspberry Pi and then especially during the era of the Pi 3 and Pi 3B, is to build one of these single board computers. Yes, this is a computer here. As you see, it's got USB slots, it has an Ethernet slot, it has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on board. These start at $35 on Amazon. I have one right here without a case on it, so you can see exactly what they look like. This is basically an all-in-one computer, or a single board computer. So everything you need is on this little tiny board here. Now this thing is called a Raspberry Pi, and you install an operating system on it called RetroPie. You can run other operating systems on it, such as Raspberry Pi OS, which basically turns it into a fully functioning desktop where you can literally use it for web browsing, coding, programming with programs like Python, Word documents, stuff like that. But what most of the retro gaming community, myself included, what we do with them is run RetroPie on them, and with this little console right here. Now, granted, this one was not $35. This is kind of the top of the line one. Pop the case off there. As you see, it's got 2 LED fans in there. It's like basically like a little mini gaming PC. So with this little guy right here and a micro SD card, which holds the operating system and also all the games and emulators and stuff like that, that little guy right there has about 30,000 games and about 64 consoles. It's got the entire PlayStation 1 library, Sega Genesis, SNES, Dreamcast, N64, a ton of the handhelds. We're talking all the Game Boy Colors, and a lot of really interesting niche systems too, like Scum VM, and a lot of the old PCs like Mac 2. A lot of the old gaming PCs are emulated in there. In my opinion, that's the best way to get into retro gaming. It's the cheapest, it has the most customization, because like I mentioned, the emulation on the Dell Optiplex, or even on your primary gaming PC. You know, if you have a $3,000 gaming PC, you run a program like RetroArch on there, and you're able to emulate on there no problem. But you don't need that powerful rig. You can use your old family computer in the basement that's been collecting dust, and that will run emulators just fine 9 out of 10 times. But with these RetroPies, the cost of entry can be as low as, I would say, about $50. The computer itself is about $35. You can get yourself a cheap, small, or used micro SD card to store all of your games on there. And then you can find all these emulators, ROMs, software packs online for free. And you have all that customization there, where with that little box there, I can save multiple game states. I can load games from there. I can screen record. I can adjust resolutions. I can plug up to 4 controllers into that little thing there and be playing 4-player couch co-op with my buddies. It's just a lot of fun. I do have a tutorial on this channel. It's about 38 minutes long. However, it does have timestamps, and it walks you guys through the entire process actually building this one right here, from, you know, assembling the board to getting the software to getting everything optimized and running. So that is a very beneficial video if you guys are interested in retro gaming, as I think retro gaming is booming right now. People are stuck at home due to the pandemic, and retro games, it was a simpler time. You don't have to worry about the stress of, you know, getting third-partied in a first-person shooter or something like that. You can just play a platformer or an old 16-bit or 32-bit game and have a good time. And for a lot of people like myself, that's part of their childhood. That's part of our history as a gamer. It's very nostalgic to play some of these things, and you hear the theme song of a game that you played as a kid, and it just like brings you back there. It really is sensational, and I think that's why retro gaming is so popular right now, in combination with the fact that now is the easiest period in time to get into retro gaming due to technology. It's easier to emulate these titles. There's better technology. You know, like little boards like this didn't exist like 20 years ago. I mean, computers were huge. So between easier entry into retro gaming and the fact that a lot of people are getting older now and these consoles are aging, but they're still nostalgic to people, I think that's why retro gaming is booming. And I think I gave my answer as to what I think is the best option, and that would be to build a Raspberry Pi mini PC. The second would probably be to get a used Dell Optiplex computer for like $130, like what I have back there. The third would probably be to buy those little mini, throwback consoles. And then probably the last, the only reason I would recommend this anyway is if you're a true collector, you want to have these native original consoles and hope that you got a working one. Then I would say get the actual native consoles and have a room just full of consoles. That's an option too if you're a collector. And I think that's going to do it, guys. Drop in the comment section below if you are a retro gamer or if you're thinking about getting into retro games after seeing a lot of people kind of play games that you used to play as a child, and it's bringing you back and you want to experience that again. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more people, which in turn helps me to grow my little channel, which I do greatly, greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I do a lot of retro gaming tutorials, as well as news in the gaming community and industry, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.